Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is WeatherBrains episode number 939. This is for the 16th of January, 2024. And you know what the deal is? We're almost at our anniversary. It'll be at the end of this month. We started WeatherBrains in January of '06. '06. Goodness gracious. What is that? 18 years. Our 18th birthday coming up here. But anyway, if you're new here, this is the pre-show. This is the magical time of the program where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally we say outrageous things. And it's a Tuesday night special because Monday night, last night, I had to work a little excessively and just could not make it happen. For those that don't know, we had some winter weather problems here. Had to do some live stuff over on the television side. And when I'm having to do some stuff live on the television side, I can't do this. But anyway, we hopefully will be a little calmer this evening. It's cold in here. In fact, we have a new record low in the WeatherBrain studio. I want to say, we are in the 40s in this room right now, in the 40s. However, some friends actually brought a portable heating unit in here, which is right by my side. So
Yeah.
as opposed to going into hypothermia, I will be able to make it here. So
So follow all your safety rules, James. Nothing 3 feet around the space heater. Don't put any carpet over the cord. All that stuff because you can't burn the TV station down.
no, we don't, or it would stop the show. I mean, if we set the smoke alarms here, the sprinklers go off and the whole thing would go right
Oh,
down the tube. So
that'd be kind of fun. So maybe we should try that.
be some good live television here. But no,
Not on the night we got Randy though. We can't do that.
Uh, yeah, no, we,
And
we,
you,
we are going to make it. We are going to make it. This show will be a total success. A Tuesday night special. I feel it in my bones. This is going to be good.
it's
Uh,
so funny because I'm in Biloxi on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and it's freezing here too. And but when and I was it was so fortuitous because I knew the weather was going to be cold. And I show up here with no coat, no gloves, no hat. But I had played Bill Murray in Groundhog Day for our managers back in October. And that big old gray overcoat and that scarf was stuck in my trunk. And so I looked silly walking around down here. So they think Bill Murray showed up for Groundhog Day. And if we repeat all this again tomorrow, they're going to get suspicious.
yeah. No, you got to do what you got to do. It's been an interesting series of days here, but it's all good. It's all good. The forecast worked amazingly well. I would say this was the best forecast winter weather event here in many years.
And to be so
Um,
marginal, because it could have gone either way.
yeah, I really was very pleased at the forecast. Of course, still you get the haters. I mean, they were all over me like flies on poop. Going into any winter weather event, it doesn't matter if you're right, if you're wrong. It doesn't matter. They're coming after you. I mean, they are absolutely coming after you. And what they do, they don't listen to us. They don't listen to the weather service. That they listen to the guy in the checkout line at the Piggly Wiggly. That they listen to their favorite TikTok dancer. That they listen to some guy down at the train station or something. I mean, that they don't.
Oh,
I
that's a
think that's the one.
fringe element. Most of Alabama is still walking around quoting you 24/7.
Well, but in the other, the app thing, and everybody looks at their phone, which is okay. That's great. They're useful and they're helpful, but during complex events, they can lead you down a bad path. So, and I would say the haters were minimal on this one because again, the forecast was really good.
Right.
But it's okay.
Well,
Hey, haters gonna hate, man. That's just the way it
that's their
is. Haters
job.
gonna hate.
What's in their job
Um,
description?
so we'll let that go.
Yeah, I've got a meme that you've probably seen 1,000 times, James, but I need to make it my pick of the week tonight. One of our managers sent it to me, and it is so spot on about you. So if I can find it and dig it out, I'll send it over to you. Maybe we can play
Oh boy. Um, oh boy.
it if you're brave. Yeah,
I'm
one of my managers said she said I got in a fight Friday because I said it's not going to do anything, And they said, "Oh yeah, it's going to be a bad tornado tonight." Blah blah blah. And so she said, "Bill Murray did not call me, so it is not going to be bad." So I was like, okay, good.
There you go. Well, see, the problem, the one problem, we're coming off that debacle last week. We had a really bad, bad bust.
That's what, yeah, that's
Um,
what she was talking
and
about.
that the haters were just all over me on that situation. They shut the state down. They shut Georgia down for basically a cool rainy day. And again, I listen. I don't blame people being mad when they should be. It should make us better. And I don't mind the haters when they've got reason to hate. It's just that when you get it right, they're still hating on you. But yeah, the Friday thing was an interesting buzz. That's a whole. Next time Kim gets on the show,
We need
I want to
her.
discuss the problem. And of course, people blame me for shutting schools down, and I've not consulted a school system in years.
Right.
Used to be I'd get text messages and stuff from superintendents, but I guess they've got some kind of internal thing now. But once one school closes, they all close. And
Well, we've had Whit McGee from the Vestavia City Schools, who's very active on our National Weather Service chat in Birmingham, and an outstanding administrator, and takes it very seriously. And he seems to be a real leader for a lot of the Birmingham community folks. And I know they have various sources they refer to, but they should refer to you, James Spann.
well, no, no, no.
You're the
Listen,
man.
they no, that they need to get it from the EMA or whatever their local government is. But I think what triggered it for most of the systems was an SPC outlook, and it was a bust. And I have praised SPC, and I love these guys. They're our Army Rangers, they're our Navy SEALs. But you know what? They can get it wrong too, and they just got it wrong. And it happens. And what we need to do is look at it and learn from the mistake, so we don't do it again. And I've been talking a lot with Kevin Laws, the local Sioux here, and again, we'll get it worked out. But you got to learn from your mistakes. Goodness gracious, we're predicting the future. It's hard. It's really hard, and but you can foul up, and even sometimes the national centers can make a mistake. So, but anyway, we'll
Got lots
discuss
to
that.
talk about tonight. And you'll be
Uh,
happy, Randy. We've made the show shorter and
Oh,
leaner and more efficient. So you'll get out of here
yeah,
before 10 o'clock Arizona time.
okay.
and we're going to hit the TV side here, and let's see, what time is it? I'm so discombobulated. We got
6:59.
30 seconds. 30 seconds is an eternity in television. How many social messages do you think that I've not had a chance to see yet? It's over 10,000. This event has generated more traffic than any other winter weather event in history for me. And And again, I am honored that people send this stuff to me, but I'm just afraid I'm going to miss something because it's going to take a couple of weeks to go through all these. I mean, you get 10,000 messages, and I'll look at one and 10 more come in. You look at one,
Well,
15 more come in. It's
I
like
looked
Lucille
at
Ball and the
your
candy machine.
right. The way you
And
responded on your video, I thought that was so gracious the way you said that, because that makes people feel good, James, for taking the time to
yeah,
share
I mean,
stuff like that with you.
I'm so honored they took the time to send it to me. There's a lot of people in the weather
Mhm.
world, and goodness, and some of the content, as we get into this phase of this now, it's just fun. Where you're seeing the polar plunges and the sleds and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's some good stuff. But welcome to our television audience. We're doing a Tuesday night special. We obviously had some winter weather problems here in the Deep South last night, so I had to do a cut in during Monday Night Football, the half, and that was fun. That drew some haters too. But anyway, we got a Tuesday night special. It's going to be a good one. So let's get the audio recorders rolling here. And we'll get this show started. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band. The AMS Weather Band is a global community of weather enthusiasts dedicated to learning and sharing their love of science. Visit amsweatherband.org to learn more and join the band today.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
You heard it from Bill Curtis. We are kind of a big deal. Hey, 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 welcome to Weather Brains, episode number 939. This is for the 16th of January, 2024. And we're coming up on the 18th anniversary of this show. This show started in January of 2006, and 18 years. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? But we're still here. And again, for those that watch live, we apologize for not doing the regular Monday night slot, but we had some weather issues, and those of us that actually worked during the show had to do some work. So it's a Tuesday night special this week, and look who's back after a little sabbatical. Ladies and gentlemen, Troy Kimmel is back on the show from Austin, Texas.
Yay.
The legend, the man, the myth. He's here.
Yeah, well, he's here.
Yeah.
Really good time. Had a chance to go out, as some of y'all know, out on the Olympic Peninsula out in Washington last week, and spend time out at Claylock and Olympic National Park and places like that. And that last night, which would have been Monday night last week, we had two Pacific storms that came onto the coast. That Monday night when this show was going on, I'm glad I didn't try to make any commitment for that. I thought the cabin was going to blow away that night. It was that bad. Electrical power, we lost it early in the evening and never came back until we left. And when we left the next morning, go back to SeaTac, no electrical power at the cabin. So I was kind of glad to get out of there, but it was impressive and really a good time out there, and glad to be back.
Well, we are honored and delighted that you're back, and you got to love a good storm. I mean, come on, we're weather people here. I mean, that's,
absolutely.
Yeah,
had a chance to even see a little small hail, pea-size hail, with one of the storms that or rain showers that came on shore, I guess, about a week and a half ago. I forget when that was, Thursday or Friday the previous week, and then the high winds 50, 60 miles an hour on last Monday. So
you got a little shout out on a forecast discussion for your report, didn't you, Troy?
Yeah, I did. We actually talked to the great people at WFO Seattle. They were very nice and gave them the hail report, and they got a little AFD mention in the area forecast discussion. But a great group of people at our Weather Service office, the WFO up in Seattle.
So Troy, how cold to go get in Corinth, Mississippi tonight? Because Randy may be heading over to judge a new all-time record for Mississippi if they.
Yeah, exactly. That I talked. We have a couple of new COCORA sites in Alcorn County, which we pushed for and worked with WFO Memphis in that case. 7 inches of snow east of Corinth, a little bit, on average about 5 to 6 inches in the city, as I understand. And I would imagine, Randy, with that on the ground tonight, I thought I would be cold here, and it's 25.8 here now on the MMTS, but they may win it tonight. They'll win that contest. Yep.
So whose fault is this Arctic situation? It's either Adalots or it's Jen's, one of the two.
Yeah.
She's raising her hand. She's raising her hand. What's the matter
latitude.
with you? Yeah.
Check latitude. It's got to be Jen.
It's me. I'll take the blame for this one. It's awful. It's 7 here right now, and it's just awful. Wind chill is 6 below.
Yeah.
So I'll take it. The blame. 15 for you. Oh,
That's my backyard.
Wow.
And y'all know that. I mean, I like cold weather, but I wore a coat with a thing. It broke 32 here in Austin. They got out and they were partying in the streets. That along with the busted pipes, by the way, that began today. The plumber's paradise, and now showing up in Austin the next couple of days. So
surely there weren't any pipes left to break after that last thing, Troy.
I don't know.
Maybe they just leave a few that'll break later.
No, there'll be some, and I don't know if people kind of maybe. I mean, we told them it would not be as bad as February 21, but still, I mean, we were down to 15 the night before last, 15 here, 14, 15, and we were down that this morning, and I think we'll be down to that, if not a degree or so below that tonight, because skies are totally clear. A few cirrus clouds to our south. So we'll see, but around here, I have a feeling the plumbers will be busy the next couple of days. And y'all both know, and I see Randy shaking his head, that I'm telling you that people say, oh, I snuck through this. But I'm telling you what, 35 and 40 is when you find out. That's when all of a sudden we learn new words,
I learned those.
And trust me on that one. There's a memory for some reason in my brain about back in February 21.
No.
How long were you away from your home during that thing, Troy?
7.5 months. Yeah, took that long to get it
brutal.
back. Yeah.
He's
That's
a
a lot of
diamond member of
waffles.
Hilton Honors now. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that was. I'm still enjoying the Hilton Honors. Thank you, Bill. And but I'm afraid I'm going back to general member before too much longer.
Yeah. All right. Well, and by the way, we should mention we have a record low here in the WeatherBrains studio this evening. We were actually at 48 here, 48 in this room, and we now have a portable heater here that is keeping the hypothermia away. So
call the fire department. It's already going to be bad.
Yeah. James, what are you holding up there? What do you got?
Gloves.
Yeah.
Oh, gloves.
Yeah, I turned on the heat last night. There's some little piece of energy or something came across the Mississippi coast. It looked like it had a little eye to it. There about 4:30, it was banging on the window, and the heat came on, and it apparently hadn't been on since last spring. Because you know those heaters in a hotel will start smelling like they're on fire.
Yeah.
You know, for that first round. So I thought I was going to burn the room down about 5 o'clock in the morning, but fortunately, none of that happened.
Well, you know, the only other thing I mentioned, I know we need to move along quickly, but anyone else, Austin being at 30 degrees north latitude, the last 2 days have been very interesting because going into this event, it was all thought this would be freezing drizzle, freezing rain, maybe a little sleet. But here in Austin, that actually started. And you go look at the ACAR soundings and you look at from Bergstrom Airport, the meteorology textbook says this would be freezing rain, sleet. First thing we got were snowflakes. At Bergstrom, we began to get snow. And what we kind of figured out, the inversion was, I don't know, 100, 3,000 feet up. But the main thing is it was so cold in that layer, the sounding made no sense that we were getting crystal snowflakes at the ground, but I think it was that cold in that lower level. It didn't, it was, the inversion was there, but below it, we were seeing temperatures 15, 16, 17. So it was very, very interesting. It was forecasters. There's still people shaking their head down here at 30 degrees north latitude. So.
And I love that show title. The sounding makes no sense. That's a good one. And on that note, Bill Murray, bring in Randy. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody, welcome to WeatherBrains, where we're thrilled to have a repeat guest WeatherBrain tonight. Randy Cerveny is our guest for this week's show, a renowned President's Professor in Geographical Sciences at Arizona State. Boy, the stuff I learned, Randy, when I study you. Randy specializes in weather and climate studies, brings a wealth of experience to the field. He's notably recognized for his role as the WMO's rapporteur of weather and climate extremes, where he plays a pivotal role in validating and assessing extreme weather records globally. Like he's got his pack tonight for Corinth, Mississippi.
There you go.
So he's going to joining us tonight to talk about his new book. Randy, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks. It's definitely been an interesting few days here. Yeah. Right? I mean, even here in Phoenix, we're at 63 degrees, so we're pulling out our parkas right now. So
yeah.
I'll send you my Bill Murray Groundhog Day.
Think Randy's time's up now.
Well, in the interest of keeping the show short, there we go. Well, fill us back in, Randy. You let us know about your background and stuff, but anybody that may have missed one of those shows, because we always get these great notes from our listeners. They'll say, "Hey, you need to have so and so on," and we'll say, "Well, they were on show 400, 600, and 735," but they like a fresh update of what's going on. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. Well, about the time that the WeatherBrains was starting, we were starting for the World Meteorological Organization a project to assess global weather extremes. So we were going to basically, I had noticed around the time of Katrina, I had heard when Katrina happened, a broadcaster, I won't mention names or anything, nobody that is on the air nowadays, say that Katrina was the worst hurricane of all time. Well, I mean, it was bad, and nearly 2,000 people lost their life, but it was nowhere near the worst hurricane of all time. And I thought, what organization fact checks this kind of information? And what I found is that for the world, there wasn't one. And so a few colleagues and I, people like Chris Lancy at the Hurricane Center and Roger Edwards at the Storm Prediction Center, we got together and we put together a list of world extremes as kind of a start. And we said, this is a start, and it would be really great if there was an organization that would be willing to step up and do this continually. Well, we have to be careful about what we ask for, because the Tom Peterson, who was then at the World Meteorological Organization, said, yeah, that's a great idea. Why don't you come out here to Spain and promote this idea, and we'll see if we can get it going. I said, okay, I did. And then it turns out that they said, yeah, this is an absolute great idea, but we want you to run it. So I said, okay, I'll take it over for a little while and see if we can get going. Well, now some 20 odd years later, we're still doing it, but it is an actual very useful, neat project where for the globe, we assess the world records, like what is the world's hottest temperature, what is the world's coldest temperature, what is the world's strongest winds. And whenever there's a new possibility of a global record being exceeded, we put together a team of international scientists who look over the data, make a determination of what's going on, and then eventually make a recommendation to me as to whether or not to accept that particular record. So it's been quite an interesting journey over the last couple decades on how this project has actually been going on. But we're still doing it. Even right now, today, I was chatting with some of the colleagues of mine that are working on a record. If you remember, last January and February, we had a tropical cyclone called Freddie that was down in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
And it, at the time, was purported to be maybe the longest lasting tropical cyclone of all time. Well, that's the kind of thing that experts have to take a look at, because during its lifetime, it did last for a very long time, but it weakened below tropical storm status, and then it went back up to tropical storm status. And how the Australians and how the French, who are in charge of the kind of the western part of the Indian Ocean, figure things out is a little bit different. And so for the last couple months, my team has been looking at all these kind of decisions about, okay, can we make a determination as to whether Freddie or not is the longest lasting tropical cyclone in history? And we're still in the process of doing that, actually. But that's been now 20 years after we started this project. We're still doing these kind of evaluations.
Well, Randy,
go ahead, Troy.
I'm just ask real quick. I interrupt. I'm sorry, Bill.
No. I'd love you to keep going.
How extensive, Randy, is your list of, I don't know how to put it, stuff that you keep track of? By the way, I want Randy's shelves. I got to tell you, I like his shelves better.
Y'all got a good.
Okay, so now I got that out of the way.
I know where everything is behind me.
I know, good. I don't, Randy. But how extensive? I mean, do you keep track of world pressure records or things like that also on your list or y'all's list, Randy?
Yeah, the main variables that we're looking at are temperature, pressure, rainfall. We also look at hail in terms of maximum size. And we've expanded, because when we started this, we didn't do this kind of thing, but we've expanded into looking at things like lightning. Now we have the technology to talk about how long a lightning flash can last and how far it can actually travel. And last year, actually, we finished a set of evaluations where we now can say with very good certainty that the current longest lightning flash event that we have on record was one down off that stretched basically from Mississippi all the way to Texas. It stretched for a distance of 477 miles. Was an event that took place back in 2020. The longest duration lightning flash actually lasted for over 17 seconds and occurred down in Argentina. So the technology has improved to the point that we can come up even now with records where when we started this thing, we didn't have any idea that that existed. We also look at tornado records, and we look at hurricane records or tropical cyclone records. So we cover a whole bunch of pretty interesting weather phenomena. You'll note the one thing that I didn't say that you all probably are thinking of right now is snow cover. Yeah. And that's one of the ones that we actually don't have as a world record. And the reason simply is because it's so blastedly hard to measure that if you measure it, it's one of those weird things. If you measure snow cover too frequently, you get a bad number. You have to let it set. You have to let it compress for a while. And so basically, that's the only really big weather variable that we don't look at nowadays.
But Randy, I assume that you work closely with our colleagues at the Weather Service and NCEI. We have a review group, I guess, for the United States and that area. So I assume you work pretty closely with them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The person that's in charge of the National Extremes Committee for the United States right now actually is a former student of mine. So yeah, I work pretty closely. Russ Vos is one of the top people there at the NCEI, and he's actually a former student of mine. So I can take very great pride in the work that the National Extremes Committee does for the United States. But when we're looking at global records, we don't want to limit it to any one particular country. So I've been pretty pleased over the last couple of decades that we've had this project going. I've had experts from some 45 different countries, and I've had committees now that have totaled a combined number of 150 different people that have been on my WMO evaluation committee. So we get a good global record there.
Thank you.
So Randy, what's the most controversial record? The one that generated the most angst? Everybody involved.
Oh yes. Well, and in this new book that I've got, I actually devoted 2 chapters actually to it, and it's the temperature record. It's the highest temperature recorded on the planet. This was the one that we did actually all the way back in 2010. We started the investigation back in 2010. And at the time, the highest temperature recorded for the Earth was in Libya. It was 136 degrees, 136 degrees Fahrenheit. And we had some new data at the time. We had a very impressive climatologist that was from Libya who provided us with the actual raw data log from that time back when that record was made back in 1922. And we noticed there were all sorts of mistakes with the record when we looked at it that was made. It was done with the wrong instruments. It was done in a poor manner. It was done in such a way that the numbers didn't compare with what happened earlier or before, and they didn't compare with surrounding areas. And we judged all this particular information, and we realized that the record was invalid. And the committee recommended that I disallow that particular investigation or that particular record, and we got rid of it so that the current hottest temperature recorded on the planet, and it is also controversial, is 134 degrees that was recorded back in Death Valley back in 1913.
Wow. So I guess there were some upset folks. Was it kind of like the college football playoff committee where, they let you have it, or was it a little more genteel than that?
Well, one of the things that happened during that particular investigation is the country in which it was taking place in had a revolution. The climatologist that we were working with in Libya was a part of the Gaddafi government at that particular time, which was in control of Libya. We started the investigation, and then all of a sudden we didn't hear from him. Revolution had broken out in Libya. And we went for almost a year without hearing what had happened to him. And then finally, I got an email from him that says, "I'm alive." Basically, he had fled across the lines with his family. He had said that at one time there were actually bullets flying over his head. You don't think of a meteorology job as being a job where you're going to get shot at, but he actually got out of Tripoli and made it over to the rebel side and started working with the rebels, and then basically now is back in his old position, but now it's with the new government that's in Libya. So
well, I mean, but Randy, I mean, James Spann sees that every well, you know, the football game night. So
exactly. Yeah.
He's surviving a coaching change right now. So
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes. So, Randy, tell us about the book. I mean, obviously, we started to touch on it a little bit here. It had to be, you know, a really, I guess, not an easy write, but an appropriate write, given the really cool stuff you've been doing for the last 20 years.
well, what's fun about it, and when I started it, I didn't quite realize what I was going to get myself into. But the way I've structured the book is I take a couple chapters to talk about how we put together this archive of world weather extremes that we have for the WMO, and then each of the following chapters is about one of our investigations. And what is super cool about it is I'm able to give some of the personal stories, like I was just talking about with that Libyan meteorologist, give some of the personal stories of the committee members that I've got. And hopefully it's going to show that meteorologists, one, we're human. Some people don't think that, I guess, but we are actually human. And two, that meteorology and climatology are pretty interesting fields, and you get to hear kind of the behind the scenes stories of people like Chris Landsey and Roger Edwards and Phil Jones from the UK. I mean, they give me kind of their background stories, and I work it into the story of their particular investigation that they were helping with me. The nice thing about me is that I don't know all of this stuff, but I can know the people that know this stuff. So I kind of feel like a little bit like Nick Fury from the Avenger movies. I try to put together the Avengers. I try to put together the best teams that I can to study this stuff. And it's really cool. I got to tell you, to have the chance to talk about those stories and those people. Susan Solomon talks about some of her work that she did down in Antarctica when she discovered basically was one of the primary people discovering the ozone hole. Really cool stuff that is associated with some of these investigations.
Yeah,
that to me is the neatest part of the book.
That's fascinating, because that's a great motivation for, you know, writing the book. And, you know, obviously, you know, you had your challenges in discovering all this information, but it had to be a lot of fun from the way you described it. Any other personal experiences come out of it that were memorable as you wrote it?
Well, one of the things that I do, and this is what makes it not a traditional textbook, I got to tell you, I'm hoping that there might be some people that use it as a textbook, but it was not really kind of designed as a textbook. It was designed for everybody, particularly those people that love weather, to talk about. So between each chapter, I give what I call a little interlude, what I call freaks of the storm. And so for each chapter, and as I say, each chapter is on temperature or rain or tornadoes or hurricanes or whatever it might be. And so I have about a short little couple pages that tell some humorous or strange stories. Oops, my lights just went out here. Stories about that particular type of phenomena. So I get into some of the weird, unusual things. So, for example, you were talking about personal. When I'm talking about tornadoes, in my little interlude section, I talk about some of the strange stories I've heard, because I get around and I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people tell me their strange stories. And so I get the chance to tell some of the strange stories about it. And with regards to tornadoes, I was once having to do a little presentation for my university at the house of Waylon Jennings. And I didn't know it was going to be Waylon Jennings at the time. They just said, yeah, go to this address and you're going to give a little talk on weird and unusual weather. I said, okay, I can do that. And so I get there, and it's this mansion in Phoenix, and I go up to it and I hesitantly knock on the door. I'm supposed to give a presentation. Yeah, I'm Waylon Jennings, and this is my wife. And oh, good Lord. So I go in there, give a little talk on weird weather, and it was a party, and a lot of people had fun with it because I do know some pretty strange stories. And then afterwards, I was talking with Waylon Jennings, and he was telling me about his tornado story. He was in Texas, and he was driving in northern Texas. I forget the exact cities that he told me about, and I have no way of verifying this story, by the way. But he said he was driving down the road, and he got hit by a tornado. And the tornado picked up his car, spun it around, he said, a couple times. And when it landed, it was actually facing back the way that he came. And he was shaken. He was sitting in the car, and he said he was fine. But he realized that maybe somebody was trying to tell him something. So he drove home. He didn't go on to where he was trying to go because the tornado had flipped his car around.
Well, I mean,
the story that he told me.
That's a change of shorts time. So, absolutely.
So Troy, I figured that's how, it's Willie, Waylon, and the boys. I think that Randy's one of the boys. But, my favorite, well, I guess it's actually a Willie Nelson story, is about he and Farron Young. Willie wasn't very successful in the early part of his career, and he was getting out of the business, and he needed money. So he, offered to sell one of his rights to one of his best songs. He didn't know it at the time, but for almost nothing. Farron Young said, "Not going to let you do that. I'll publish the song. And, then you can, if it's successful, then we'll share in the profits." And of course it went to number one, and it was big. And Willie Nelson went in Tootie's and kissed him on the mouth and told him thank you. And Farron Young said it's still the best kiss he ever got. So that is just hilarious. I wish I knew what day that was. I'd put it in my weather history over here. It wouldn't be substantiated, Randy, but
yeah,
such a good story. We don't need a few facts to get in the way.
Yeah, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. That's
exactly. So Randy, when is the book coming out? I know I've been privileged to see some sort of galley proof or something. It looks fantastic. Right. When will it be out for everyone to get a copy of it?
Well, it's going to be ready for pre-order, if you want to pre-order it, on February 8th, and it will be available for purchase without pre-order on February 29th, on Leap Day. So that's basically when it's going to be coming. Yeah.
That's a very appropriate day for this book to come out. Yeah. So now, James, in regard to that, I need the breaking news because we've had a pre-ordered book that a lot of us have been excited about getting too, the significant tornadoes thing. So if you can roll the breaking news.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
Yeah, Tom Grazoulis, we all got our significant tornado books over the last couple of months. I just got an email from Doris. They're going to do the show on February 26th. I've been placeholding it for 3 months. So everybody, keep your fingers crossed. February 26th, I think we're going to have Tom and Doris on WeatherBrains. So Randy, that's our breaking news right there. Same level as you there to get Tom on this show.
And I actually mentioned that book in my book because it is such an influential book when you're talking about tornado chronologies, tornado archives. That is by far one of the best. I'm thinking particularly of the green cover that my students have broken into parts because it's so big, but it is one of the best books written on tornado histories, frankly.
Yeah, mine's held together with green duct tape in honor of the cover. My new one will be worn out before you know it. So. Yep. Talk about, some of the common misconceptions. You mentioned Hurricane Katrina. I'm down here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. There are big swaths of vacant land still. And you wouldn't know that it was necessarily a hurricane unless you were familiar with, the destruction that it caused. But what are some of the misconceptions you've run into other than the ones you've mentioned?
Well, one of the things that we always have to do is when we start an investigation, we have to make sure that it was recorded properly. And unfortunately, in today's world, where it's always trying to get the word out, the media tries to get the word out as fast as possible to claim credit for the story and this type of thing. And when you're trying to verify a record, it doesn't work that way. You got to go back and you got to look at the raw data. You got to look at the instruments. And particularly now with temperature records, we have to not only look at the instruments, we have to take the instruments and have them independently tested at a testing facility. You may remember a couple years ago, we had 130-degree temperature recorded at Death Valley. We haven't still verified that because the instrument is setting in an independent testing facility being tested, or hopefully in line to be tested, so that we can calibrate it and make sure that it was recording the proper temperature at that particular time. We've done that now a number of particular times. We're going to be announcing, I can kind of give you a little bit of an advance notice, but this is going to be coming out in the next week or next couple of weeks, is that we have a new highest temperature for continental Europe. It happened a couple years ago. It was in Sicily, and it was a temperature of 48.8 degrees Celsius. And that is now going to be the hottest temperature ever recorded in continental Europe. But we had to have the entire weather system, the sensor, taken and sent to a calibration lab in Italy, where it was put into really extensive testing. And they were not only able to calibrate that it was recording the correct temperature, but it was recording the correct temperature to the nearest hundredth of a degree. So not just tenth of a degree, but to 100th of a degree, which we don't record our records in. We record it to the nearest tenth. But the instrument was working fine, in other words. But not all of those kind of situations occur. And particularly in some parts of the world, our instrumentation isn't quite as good or as calibrated as it should be. And we have to do due diligence to make sure that that was the case when we're accepting a record, or else we're going to be rejecting it. So,
well, Randy, I got a question. Even here in the U.S., I mean, you know that we have Weather Service, and we have FAA ASOSs, and we have AWOSs, and everything else. Boy, that even if you look across airport locations, there are different systems. At smaller airports, you have not the vendors that the Weather Service use for ASOS. For the AWOS, that's a different vendor. All Weather Inc., Mesotech, places like that. It's got to be so complicated. I mean, really.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A couple years ago, we had a purported record for the highest temperature in Antarctica. And it was part of a Brazilian group that was studying permafrost.
Right.
And as part of their stations, they had a sensor that was recording air temperature. And they had gotten a temperature actually that was somewhere, if memory serves, it was somewhere over 20 degrees Celsius in Antarctica, which, if it was right, would have been the hottest temperature ever recorded in Antarctica. We contacted that British team, and we got into a very detailed investigation. Turns out that during their setup of that particular station, they had some equipment malfunctions, so that they had jury rigged it, and they had put one of their solar shields too close to the temperature sensor, so that the heat off of the solar shield that was shielding another instrument was actually radiating heat onto the sensor that was recording air temperature. And from some testing, we figured out that it was about a half a degree Celsius difference between what it should be. So we said, no, sorry, that's not a record. By the way, the Brazilians that were involved with this particular investigation, fantastic group. They admitted, yeah, we had to do a jury rig a system in Antarctica. Sometimes you got to do that. And it wasn't air temperature that they were particularly interested in. They were interested in permafrost. So they were very, very helpful, but we disallowed the record because it wasn't taken using the right instruments. Or in this case, it was right instruments, but they had been jury rigged not to function properly.
Yeah. And, too, Randy, and I promise, Bill, I'll shut up, and James and everybody.
Please, the whole point is for you to,
but
it's amazing that you know this stuff so well.
No, it's not either. I mean, we all have we realize this, but even Randy, taking a look at a sensor array in 2024 to go back and look at what people say, well, that same sensor was there in 1980. That's true, but I mean, it wasn't the same sensor, and we've made a lot of technological advances since then. But even comparing current day to, manual observations in the early 80s, there's an issue, I guess, in a sense, in comparing
absolutely.
those.
Absolutely. And again, that brings back to mind this Death Valley temperature from 1913. That's our hottest temperature recorded. Obviously, that's not using nearly as precise of instrumentation as what we have today. But we're also of the mind that, we don't want to just throw out a weather record because it's old. We've got to have a reason to be able to throw out and say that a record is bad. When we threw out that Libyan temperature in 1922, that was made in 1922, we came up with 5 different reasons on why it was a bad value and threw it out because of that. You don't want to just kind of willy-nilly throw out, don't say, any record that was made before 1980 isn't good. Yeah, that's just not quite the way we want to handle things. And so we have to be judicious in the way that we investigate these older values. But there's a lot of problems.
In station history as well. I mean, I will tell you something, and I don't think anyone knows, and I kind of want to get this out there because I want the world to know about it. But we're, since the mid 90s, I guess this has been a record in place. So it's not that old. But in Texas, if you've been out, and I think James knows this because he's been around here, and probably James up in Tulsa understands this as well. But we have the GDP, the Guadalupe Pass, Texas ASOS, that hasn't reported, by the way, in about 2 months. And it's because it's just so far away. It's hard to maintain that thing, and it is going to be decommissioned. The Weather Service has apparently made the decision that site, Guadalupe Pass ASOS, is going to be decommissioned pretty shortly. They just cannot support it. So even places like that more remotely are difficult to keep an eye on. And I assume, Randy, you go into it. I assume with most what you do is you kind of go into something in a cynical sense. You want to find out everything you can about it. You do your homework before you say, okay, we'll buy that, I guess,
Oh, absolutely. And what's also interesting, of course, is to bring that in mind. Not only are older stations being decommissioned, but we're getting newer stations in more remote locations that are going to be setting records.
Right.
For example, you probably saw a recent issue of the Bulletin of the AMS. We now have a weather station near the top of Mount Everest. That's probably going to be setting some records in the near future. In Death Valley itself, the old record was taken at a place that's called Furnace Creek.
Yeah.
Which is not the lowest part of Death Valley. The lowest part of Death Valley is about 27 miles down the valley. And in that particular in that lowest spot now, within just the last year, NWS Las Vegas put in a weather station at that location. The odds are, because it's lower, it will be hotter on particularly hot situations than the Furnace Creek station. So we're going to be watching that station very, very carefully in the future. But you're right, weather stations change, and we have to be aware of the differences in the instrumentation. We have to be aware of the sighting situations. One of the big problems with that Libyan temperature back in 1922 is that the original weather station that they had there was built over an asphalt courtyard, a tarred courtyard, a black tarred if you've got a black tarred courtyard, it's going to read hotter than a normal place. I was with a friend of mine who was at the time the state climatologist of Arizona. We went out to a place in Bullhead City, Arizona, because we'd noticed that in the recent years they had become the hottest place in Arizona. We wanted to make sure that everything was working there. And we went out there. We found They had originally put the weather station by the fire station, which was the group that was recording the observations. And they realized that, or they had put it across the street over a desert environment. But they realized that that was a little too hard for them to go to. So they had moved the weather station to right next to the fire station over their parking lot. Oh, we said, no, why don't you move it back? And they moved it back, and the temperatures settled back down to being normal. But those are some of the problems you got to have. You got to look at who's taking the measurements, where is the station sited, what kind of equipment are they using. All those kind of things are what my investigative committees end up having to look at.
You know, one of the things, Randy, is it's just really expensive to make that financial commitment for maintenance and upkeep and data communication too. And I don't know the answer, but wildlife tend to nest and things in weather stations too. So, I mean, you're kind of chasing your tail a lot trying to keep these things running well. And as I put in chat, I'd like to order a couple of asphalt courtyards too, because it's very
well, no, you've never seen. I mean, Randy, here in Central Texas, believe me, I'm responsible for one of them at Camp Mabry here in Austin, which is an ASOS site. We've got a Cotton Region shelter out there, and folks, you don't know when you have to deal with yellow jackets during the summer, how much they like that shelter, and they don't want to move, and they'll come after you. So I've had to fight them off a couple of times. So,
well, and then you get people that maybe aren't as meteorologically aware as this illustrious panel that I'm talking with here, where I will get, an email from somebody whose car thermometer reads 140 degrees. And they say, oh, hey, I've just set the world record for temperatures. You've got to put in, update your records now so that I am the new record holder of the world's hottest temperature. No, it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, they got to send $5,000 to get it.
Yeah, that's really, yeah.
And I was noticing last night, while we were tracking this, freezing precipitation across Alabama, the Tempest network is built out pretty well, and it looked like most of the data was pretty consistent, across Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi. And obviously it's not, records grade like we're talking here, but I was kind of surprised. My Tempest was doing a really good job last night as the temperature fell quickly, and we went into freezing, and that network is getting pretty robust now with literally hundreds of stations all over. And I really enjoyed mine for sure. Now, my wife asked a question, and she put it in the chat over here for me. She saw a quote that you made that said, geography is literally the mother of all disciplines, the basis of everything from anthropology to zoology. Talk about that quote for a minute. She saw that I think in a National Geographic article or something that talked to you.
Well, what I'm looking at is old times. When back in very old times, there were really only two disciplines. There was geography, which was the science of space, and there was history, which was the science of time. So everything from that is associated with anything involving space kind of has some ties all the way back to geography. So I like to tell my students that they're in one of the fundamental of all sciences. The other thing that I always like to tell them is that geographers, if we look at the person in any field that's made the most amount of money, it turns out that a geographer is the person who's made the most amount of money in a field, because Michael Jordan was a geography major back when he was at NC State. So
I like
your
it.
geography degree can earn you a whole bunch of money if you happen to be as good as Michael Jordan, I guess.
So Randy, talk about the media's portrayal of weather events and how that affects public perception and understanding. You mentioned this rush to judgment a lot of times. And what other ways does it affect the public perception?
Well, one of the nice things about this particular project that we come up with is that over the last couple decades, I've been able to develop some pretty close ties now with media, so that when a new record comes out, there are a lot of groups, a lot of news groups that will first contact me, particularly the Washington Post, the Capital Weather Gang. I've got good relationships with those guys, and they'll contact me. One, it gives me a heads up if I hadn't heard about it, but two, then they can get an immediate response as to what the WMO is actually thinking about in terms of these kind of things. It also has allowed me to get some contacts with other groups that do records. You all probably are aware of the Guinness Book of World Records. Now, they have people that are associated with weather. When they come up with weather records prior to when I had this project start all the way back in 2007, they were kind of the official source for weather extremes. I am now a consultant with the Guinness Book of World Records. That one of the things when they have a world record of something involving weather, they'll usually run it past me first to make sure that, yeah, does that sound reasonable? And yeah, it does, or no, it doesn't, or here I can give you some better information on that. So over the last couple of decades, we've made some major success with being one of the primary sources that media will go to whenever there's a particular world record. I got to tell you, the press people at the World Meteorological Organization are some of the best in the world. And when we announced this last year, those lightning records that I mentioned, the longest distance and the longest duration, when they put out a WMO press release on that, they have their own ways of figuring out how many potential people are going to be able to access it. Now, there's going to be some overlap because different media services, we're going to service the same group. But when we announced those lightning records, the head press person at the WMO came to me and said, we had an outreach of 10 billion people, a potential 10 billion people. Well, that's more than the population there, but it means there was a good chance that almost everybody on the planet heard something about those lightning records when they were made. Wow, that's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah, James A. just had a funny comment because I had a Guinness story. One of our hotel general managers came to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Murray, we want to set the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest peach cobbler in history." And I thought that was a great idea. So I authorized him to do it. And of course, you had to pay Guinness to come out and, certify it. But they did. They set the world record. The Hampton Inn in Ruston, Louisiana, set the record for the world's biggest, with the help of Louisiana Tech University. They set the record, and everybody ate this thing that was in an Olympic swimming pool size trough, that the home ec department at Tech had helped with. But they still have the plaque in the lobby and the whole 9 yards. So James A. Said that they've tapped me as a weather expert. So there you go. Speaking of our friends in Ireland. So
and it's interesting that they take that very seriously. When they're certifying any particular record, they have very strict standards as to what they're going to consider to be acceptable or not. It's not just, we think it's going to, make people laugh or something like that. They take these very seriously. So I was very pleased when they said, "Hey, we want you to come on board as a consultant because we want to make sure that the records that we're listing are legitimate." And yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
you got to hand it to them, Troy. Yeah. Keep you're on a roll tonight, Troy.
Yeah, I'm tempted. I don't think this will get us in trouble, Randy, but I want to get kind of your review on this. I'm biased. I'll admit that in advance. Being a National Weather Service co-op observer, and I've got MMTS here, I've got the sensor out there. Are you in a way? I'm kind of saddened because I see that co-op network slowly dying on the vine, the National Weather Service co-op network. And I'm kind of wondering it's not something that maybe you have that many things where you have to go dig back into co-ops here in the U.S., National Weather Service co-ops, but want to kind of get your view on it.
Yeah, that is sad. And it's one of the things that I've been pleased. One of the things that the WMO does, that the World Meteorological Organization does, that I was unaware of before I started working with them a couple decades ago, is that they take great pride in trying to maintain long-term observation sites. There is a place, speaking again of Guinness here, there's a place in Ireland that is Valencia. It's a Valencia Observatory. They have been making observations at the Valencia Observatory on the western coast of Ireland for, I want to say, over 150 years.
Wow.
And they were recognized as one of the centennial sites just recently by the World Meteorological Organization. They get this beautiful plaque and this kind of stuff. So I think, anything that we can do to draw attention and honor and recognize these people that have been making observations for an extended period of time, those records are invaluable to us. When we're looking at things like climate change, having long-term records is invaluable, because in order to figure out that something's changing, you got to know what the baseline is. And that's important. And I'm glad to see groups like the World Meteorological Organization do that. I'd like to see even more of that here in the United States with with NOAA and the National Weather Service. Let's promote these long-term records that have been existing.
I think probably a little, and this is just me talking off. Imagine me just running off on this, but I think part of this is complicated, Randy, by the fact in the U.S. that so many of the ASOSs now are operated by the FAA. They're still maintained by the National Weather Service in most cases, but FAA will tell you we're not particularly interested in climatology, but they actually own the majority of the ASOSs here in the U.S. at airports that are supporting LCD records essentially over at NCEI, long-term local climatological data. So I don't know, it's interesting, and in those airport installations and co-ops, it's pretty amazing what's out there. You go if you want to really get into a time suck, go look at NCEI and go back and look at some of these local climatological daily co-op records through the years that go back into the 1800s. Really pretty fascinating.
Absolutely. And recently, I will say that the CocoRa's expansion network has helped some. We're getting more and more people involved with CocoRa's, which is a really cool project for the United States, where we again are using basically citizen scientists here to make good weather observations for us.
So Randy, did the Egyptians ask you to go back and check the Red Sea and Moses to see if that really happened and why and how it occurred, or are they still carping about that?
Well, we basically have a limit of how far back we go. For our world weather records, we want to go back to a time period that is where we can be sure of fairly good instrumental records. And so we've used the starting date of the World Meteorological Organization as kind of our back date. So we don't go back for records any further than 1873. Last year was the 150th anniversary of the World Meteorological Organization. Now, when you talk to people about climate change and this kind of stuff, we can talk about temperatures that existed prior to 1873, but very often what we're doing is we're using climate proxy records, which are fine, but they're not instrumented records, and so we don't list them as official extremes for what we're doing. So our instrumented records, pretty much we're using an earliest date of 1873 for our records. And if you look at things like the reanalysis packages, when you're looking at trying to figure out daily weather patterns and this kind of stuff, a lot of people are using the reanalysis packages. Those only go back to about that same time period as well.
So before 1873, it's kind of a Egyptian weather record blanket denial.
Oh, I did not say that.
No, Randy, you didn't. We love Okie James. He can roll them out.
Randy, we've invited Celeste Solo to be on and I hope I'm saying her name right, the new Secretary General of the WMO, and she has responded, just with a contact, but we haven't gotten her yet. So if you get to say a good word for us, please do, because we would sure love to have her. And Dr. Neil Jacobs, his ears really perked up when we talked about having her on. Tell us about that role and how it's important, and why it's so phenomenal that we have our first female in that position.
Oh, absolutely. And she's an excellent scientist that comes in from Argentina. Basically, the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization is the mouthpiece for weather information across the world, so that they're going to be the ones when I get a question, and I often get a question on what should we do about things like climate change and global warming. I'm not a policy person. That's not my expertise. I'm a data person. I like looking at numbers and making sure that the numbers match up and that they were made correctly and this kind of stuff. So when that kind of happens, when I get a question involving climate change, what I will do is send them off to what the Secretary General says about climate change. And that person is basically the person that becomes our mouthpiece, because all of the countries, all of the national weather services for all the different countries around the world are part of the World Meteorological Organization. And that's how it was originally designed all the way back in 1873. One of the cool things that I've still amazed about is, you hear most general people talking and they think that the United Nations or the League of Nations that was after World War I, those were the first attempts at global unity. One of the very first global attempts at unity was scientific, and it was involving weather. And it dates back, as I say, to 1873. They were realizing back then that when you made a weather observation, you wanted to make it in exactly the same way, whether you were in the United States or whether you were in England or whether you were in Russia or whether you were in Australia, so that the numbers made sense. And believe it or not, I still find it amazing. They got everybody to agree to that back in 1873. They said, "Yeah, this is such a good idea. Let's make an organization that monitors how observations are made around the entire world and standardizes them, so that we can do exactly that." And it's worked so well since that time that when the United Nations formed, they looked around and they said, "Oh, wow, what is this thing called the World Meteorological Organization? We're going to take them and we're going to make them a part of us because they're so cool." So we got pulled into the United Nations, even though we had existed for 100 years earlier. We got pulled into the United Nations because we were the kind of organization that they actually wanted. And of course, nowadays, a lot of the work with what we do in the WMO has become a little politicized. That the reports that are put out by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, those are obviously stuff that generate a lot of publicity and a lot of political debate. But that's part of the function of the World Meteorological Organization. The World Meteorological Organization does a huge amount of really cool work. And I hope you can get the Secretary General to come on in. She'll be able to expound upon all the different things that the WMO does much, much better than I am. I'm just a tiny little fraction of what's going on. But the work of the WMO is just incredible. And they're based out of Geneva, Switzerland. So they have a very cool building that is dedicated to the work that they're doing there, and just really, really good organization. I didn't know much about it when I shot my mouth off two decades ago about all of this, and I've learned, and I have become very appreciative of the group that I work with nowadays.
How often do you get over there, Randy, to Switzerland?
Not very much. Most of the work that we do is by email or by Zoom or this kind of stuff, particularly, of course, over the last few years when we had COVID and that kind of stuff. So I've only been there a couple times. And oftentimes when we're having some of the WMO meetings, they're not held necessarily at Geneva, but at one of the climate community centers like in Spain or in the UK or even in the United States, Asheville, that type of thing. So it depends on the situation, but normally we do it by Zoom nowadays.
Awesome. Well, Randy, our hour is up. We're trying to shorten the show here. WeatherBrains has gotten out of hand. I mean, I think we had one show that was 2.5 hours, and we've had some feedback. You guys might want to cut back on the time a little bit, so we're trying to tighten this show up a little bit. But Randy, thanks. If anybody wants to ask a question or get in touch with you, is there a way to do that?
Yeah, basically go to our website. It's wmo.asu.edu, and that's where all the records are actually listed. The other thing is, if you want to know more about this particular project and how we define world weather records and that kind of stuff, at the end of next month, we got this beautiful book coming out. It's called Judging Extreme Weather, Climate Science in Action. And hopefully you're going to find it not only useful, but entertaining. I meant it to be a very different kind of weather book. And I had fun writing it. And it tells the stories of some really great people that are in our field.
Awesome. Entertaining is good. Now, if you can stick around, we'd love for you to do that because we got to do picks of the week here in a few minutes. So if you get us a good pick, we'll come back to you. But we have to take a quick pause here. We're going to hear from Tony Rice and his astronomy report. We've got Jen and This Week in Tornado History. We'll come back with the email question of the day, our email segment of the day. Well, Jim, how am I trying to rephrase this? Our email of the day, email of the week. Is that right? How do we frame this thing? Email of the week. See, we're trying to tighten this thing up, and I'm not figured it out yet. But anyway, we've got that. We've got picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
An update on the Peregrine mission launched last week from Florida. This is the first spacecraft sent by an American company to the moon. Peregrine was to touch down on the lunar surface in late February, enabling a suite of science payloads to do their job, but that's not going to happen. Soon after deployment, controllers noticed a problem. It was losing propellant, a significant link that not only robbed it of the fuel that it needs to get into lunar orbit and ultimately land, but this leak was acting like a tiny rocket engine, sending the spacecraft into a tumble. The company announced on Saturday that the lander is on its way back to Earth, where it will burn up safely in the atmosphere, saying in a statement, quote, "We must balance our own desire to extend Peregrine's life, operate the payloads, and learn more about the spacecraft, with the risk that that damaged spacecraft could cause a problem. By responsibly ending Peregrine's mission, we're doing our part to preserve the future of cislunar space for all." That last sentence reflects a shift in how we use space. Not just treating it as a limitless resource, but taking care to dispose of spacecraft after they're no longer useful. We've come a long way since those first launches in the late 50s, where we frankly didn't know what we were doing. The U.S.'s first satellite, Explorer 1, that was launched in December of 1958, and it didn't deorbit until 1970. Vanguard 1 was launched a month after Explorer, and it's still up there, and likely will be until the year 2200. The other thing that gets lost in these failures is the successes that they contain. Peregrine has been operating in cislunar space, or that area between Earth and the Moon, for more than a week. They've burned the main engine, they've kept the solar panels pointed towards the sun, and that's allowed them to power up all of the payloads. And each is talking back to Earth. The company statement even pointed to some of the science objectives of those payloads already being achieved. Yes, Peregrine won't land on the Moon, but there was still much gained in the attempt. Elsewhere in the sky, look for the waxing gibbous moon alongside Jupiter on Wednesday evening. It'll be even closer on Thursday. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
For the Storm Prediction Center, 212 tornadoes occurred in January of 1999. This is the greatest number of tornadoes to occur in January since records began in 1950. 2 of the twisters were rated F4 and 14 were given an F3 rating. There was a total of 18 fatalities and close to 350 injuries. 22 of the 212 tornadoes occurred on January 17th of 1999. The strongest of the day was an F4 that moved through parts of Jackson, Tennessee. This tornado formed east of Bemis and tracked to the northeast for 16 miles. It moved through the southern part of Jackson. The Hollywood Shopping Center had severe damage, and a funeral home near it was demolished, except for interior rooms. Over 200 homes were destroyed, and 300 more had lesser damage. The building that houses school buses for the county was destroyed, and 55 school buses were damaged. There were over 100 injuries and 6 fatalities due to this tornado. Read more about this event and hundreds more at tornadotalk.com. Join the American Meteorological Society's Weather Band at amsweatherband.org to connect with weather enthusiasts all over the world, plus 10,000 plus members of the AMS. Swap stories and data, join photo contests and interactive webinars, or test your trivia knowledge. Full membership is just $12 per year. And don't forget to join WeatherBand February 29th and March the 1st from noon to 4 for the annual virtual Jamposium. As requested by WeatherBand members, the Jamposium will cover topics from climate change and severe weather to science communication, citizen science, and the April 2024 total solar eclipse. Go to amsweatherband.org to get started.
All right, let's time to dig into the email inbox, and maybe there's something in there for us this week.
All righty. Yeah, our question email of the week comes from Marvin Johnson, and this is actually, he specifically said, this is for James Spann. What are frost quakes?
Frost quakes, so great. Where's Neil when you need him? So anybody else anybody want to go on this one on a frost quake thing?
I think that's
Randy?
when the ground freezes and then thaws and creates little shakings.
Yeah,
things.
it's kind of a geological thing, and I years ago I learned tell them what you know and don't tell them what you don't know, and I've certainly heard of the things, and I've but I've down here in the deep South we typically don't deal with it that much. Jen, have you ever had any up there?
No, I don't know much about them either, actually. So I don't want to say. Yeah, we'll have.
We are going to put our research cap on, and we're going to come back and give a full report next week. Our homework will be done.
That's right. Now, if you would like to be picked, and it may be this one again for next week.
No, save that one for next week.
I'll save this again when Neil comes back, and we'll put him on the spot. So, but email at weatherbrains.com. We love getting your emails, your show suggestions. Please send those in, and we will possibly pick your email for the week. And also, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. The newsletter link is on the website, and you'll see our cute little faces, and there's a link there. You can sign up to get that every Thursday morning in your email inbox.
Now, Bill, I've seen some buzz about us doing a live segment from AMS. When is that? It's got to be this month. It's always in January.
It'll be
right?
on Monday night, the 29th. And I think that Dr. Jacobs is manufacturing some kind of whiz-bang camera to I think he's going to hover and do things and go around the party there at AMS and introduce us to lots of folks. So we're looking forward to that. So he and Kim will be a very dynamic duo in Baltimore in a couple of weeks.
Okay, good. Well, let's do picks of the week. We'll go around the horn. Everybody's going to share something that is weather related on this Tuesday night. And mine, it's a tweet from Rick Mitchell, who is with KXAS in Fort Worth. James A., you ever been to KXAS before?
Yes, sir. Worked there for about 4 years before I had the chance to come back here. So just before Rick started, so I got to work with David.
Okay, David Finfrock. Yes,
yeah.
we used to call him David Flimflam. I don't know why. When I worked at Channel 4, this was an eternity ago. This is back in the 1980s, but they called him Flimflam, and I started calling him Flimflam. And said, wait a minute, let me get that corrected here. But anyway,
that's why he's never been on the show. Is that what it is?
Apparently so. Yeah, apparently so. But David's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable and just a great guy. But apparently, Rick was going to do a cut-in for their digital weather channel or online or something, and somehow that cut-in went over the NFL football game that was running on the main channel, Channel 5, the NBC channel. This was Sunday night, and it wasn't the Cowboys game that was on Fox. This was the one that ran Sunday night. But
that was a disaster among itself. So okay,
that's true. But how does this happen? I mean,
whoops.
Goodness gracious. And you can imagine the hate, the vitriol, the nastiness that Rick had to endure. And he put out a tweet about it and basically said he was mad too. And I don't blame him. So obviously they need to put in some type of systemic fix for that so that doesn't happen again. But the goodness, that would be one of my worst nights. That'd be like, WeatherBrains going over Monday Night Football on my channel here. Yeah. We're an ABC channel. And
let's try it sometime.
Yeah,
we'd be history. Yeah, we'd be history.
And all the haters, send it to Troy at troykimmel.com.
There you go. Yeah,
he's
do that. Yeah.
Our hate mail officer. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And I feel so sorry for Rick. I mean, goodness gracious, we deal with so much junk. And I know it's been brutal. But anyway, it's a tweet about that. That'll be my pick of the week. All right, Troy, give us something good.
I want to thank our follower here at WeatherBrains, Jay Farlow, provides so much information, Jen, and is always in touch with us. I liked something he sent us, and this is courtesy of WANE TV, I think. And everyone's seen this article. I think it was probably on Associated Press as well, about, and this scares the heck out of me, that the federal government, Washington, let's restrict that to Washington. Federal government apparently has decided that the signs on major highways, those that are sort of operated, I guess, by the state DOTs, can no longer use the humorous reminders that they use. And TxDOT is great in Texas. I think they're great. But now the federal government's going to come in and screw things up. I mean, they're going to they're asking the states to get rid of the humorous messages. And I'm really interested in getting Kim's feedback on this when she gets back on the show. But this is what my pick of the week's all about. But I'm afraid anytime Washington wants to get a hold of something, that they're going to screw it up. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit on this one.
Yeah, so the proverbial wet blanket there. I think I guess unless people are like trying to shoot a picture of it with their phone or something, it looks like it would get the message across even more. I thought they were funny.
No, and I just, I trust TxDOT more than I trust the Federal Highway Administration. Let's put it that way.
Wow. And again, all of these links will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Jen, give us something good. Go.
So I am very proud to announce that we have completed our first summary series for our project on the April 3rd and 4th, 1974 super outbreak. After 2 big trips and all this information, and we're trying to organize it and figure out how we're going to put all this together, we finally released it. It is an 11-chapter summary series, and those are available to our Patreon members. And I will give this information too. I am working on how to get these out in a different form. I'm trying to figure out how to do ebooks for our short stories so folks can read them that way as well. But so the 11 chapters are very, very in-depth from the beginning to the end, people stories, all kinds of stuff. But the link I'm going to share is the overview, which is free. And the overview gives you a synopsis of the event and all the links and different things. And it's for, the title is the South Frankfort to Stamping Ground, Kentucky F4 Tornado and Downburst Disaster of April 3rd, 1974. And so we bumbled, Nelson did actually, into a paper from Fujita about this event. We reached out to Dr. Greg Forbes to get to consult with him. We had to completely change how we wrote this. And so I'm just going to have you, it's historical discovery on this and how we changed how this event played out. And it's very, very important for just climatological reasons, historical reasons of what happened on this event. And I'm really, really proud of the work. And I hope everyone will go read the overview. There's some amazing maps in there, and we do share some of the stories, powerful stories. There were 4 fatalities from this event. And this gave us an idea of how we're going to move forward. And so the next event we are currently writing on is the Guin, Alabama F5. And so that'll be the next one that we release. And we're trying to get a few more done before the actual anniversary. This is a multi-year project for us, but I'm really proud of it. So hopefully everyone will go check that out.
Excellent. No, that's a lot of work. So thank you, Jen. James Adelot in Tulsa, the frozen tundra of Tulsa.
Yeah, I kind of have 2 pictures of the week. One, I have a big spreadsheet full of winter records, consecutive hours below whatever. And in this recent thing, we actually tied our most consecutive days with lows below 0 with 3. So it was foul cold. And my second one is that picture of Ben Affleck leaning against the wall, looking beaten with a cigarette in one hand. And it says, "Parents, when they get the text message that school is closed again."
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Wow. All right. Good deal. All right, Randy, we have stalled long enough. We know you got something good for us. Go.
Well, let's see. Actually, this week I've been fielding a whole bunch of comments about the recent reports that NASA, NCEI, and the WMO and places in Europe have put out. 2023 is the hottest year that we have recorded on the planet. And, part of that, of course, short term was due to the fact that we had that intense El Nino situation starting up in the Pacific, and the Pacific is such a large portion of the globe. But superimposed upon that, of course, has been the steady increase in temperatures across the globe year after year after year. Those have combined to make 2023 the hottest year on record that we have.
All right. And again, we'll put a link to that up on weatherbrains.com. Bill Murray, go.
Yeah, James, I'm going to use a really funny really funny thing that Jason Goodson, who's a really hilarious TikToker and social media expert, I guess. What do you say, James? A social media
influencer
an influencer about you
yes.
and how people feel about you in Alabama, because I thought that was perfect. Someone shared that with me. I saw a funny meme yesterday when all the maybe you can play it if you can in a second, but I saw a funny meme that said 1978, the snow was up about to the doors, and it was like, off to school, kids. And, then it was 2024, and there was a little patch of, snow in the yard, and they were like, back to bed.
Yeah. Yep.
So
exactly.
I don't know, James. Can you play Jason Goodson's?
Well, let's try this. I think I can do this, and I'm going to click on the share sound button. So let's see if we can do now. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, we can.
Let's see if we can play it here.
Let me tell you about these folks in Alabama. If there's anybody that has Nick Saban, that's James Spann. He's the weatherman. The only thing these people like more than watching some Alabama football is watching James tell them what the storm's going to do. Because it's going to do exactly like he said. If he's on TV and he's got all his clothes on, you don't have anything to worry about. It's going to be a good day. But if he takes his jacket off, things just got serious. And that's his way of letting you know you better have your insurance up to date, because there will be some damage. He's going to give you a polygon on the map to let you know where the damage is going. And if you find yourself within the confines of it, you better put some respect on it, because he don't miss. And if you ever see him with his sleeves rolled up, that's his way of telling you better have peace with your maker, because it's going down. He don't use words and phrases like I think and somewhere over there. He's going to tell you exactly what road the nader's going down, and if he's pointing at your house, you might as well call yourself Dorothy, because you're fixing to be headed to Oz, and your little dog too. What's really amazing is it don't matter what part of the state's getting beat up. Not only does he know where the nader is, but he knows whose house it just tore up by name. It blows my mind. Now, these folks in Alabama might have their little differences over whether it's War Eagle or Roll Tide, but there's one phrase they are all on board with.
Oh, that's great. Awesome.
That's funny. All right.
And next week, James will be talking to our friend Mark Sudduth. He lost his dad in September, and his dad meant a lot to him. And Mark is going to come and talk to us about the role his parents played, and we can all thank our parents for the roles they played in steering us along. So I'm excited about that. And we're going to have the AMS show on the 29th. That's news to Mike Vermillion. I haven't told him yet that we're going to move his show, but we've had to move him once already. So if he might be listening to see what sort of hijinks going on this silly show. I'll send you an email and let you know about that. We'll pick another date, but I think it's an opportunity that's too good to pass up to have Kim and Dr. Neal, Dr. Kim and Dr. Neal running loose at AMS in Baltimore. It'll be a lot of fun.
Indeed. All right. So that's good. And again, for those that are listening, we're trying to make the show a little shorter here. The object of the game is to keep it under 90 minutes here. So again, we're doing our best to do that. And the problem is, people are just bombarded with content. There is so much content. Goodness gracious. You can go and turn on your TV. Now you got Netflix and Hulu and YouTube and MeTube and TheYTube. There's so much out there, and everybody's got a podcast. I mean, really, your Uber driver's got a podcast. The lady at the McDonald's has a podcast, and people can only consume so much media in a 24-hour period. And we understand that. And I think in recognition of that, we're just trying to tighten things up a little bit here. So anyway, that's the deal. And again, we're doing a Tuesday night special. Next week, we will be back on our regular Monday night schedule. So next Monday night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. And for those that listen, you can watch this. There's a video version. We do it live on the WeatherBrains YouTube channel, youtube.com/WeatherBrains. But we do know that most of you listen. And if you would like to have a chance to be the emailer of the week, give us a note at email@weatherbrains.com. And we're going to work on that frostquake question for next week. We'll have a full report ready. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week and God bless.
Thank you, everybody. Randy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Randy.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Have you on.
Thanks so much. Y'all have a great week.